The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised. Good evening and welcome back to Terra Turas. I'm glad that everybody could join us. This evening you're seeing an extra person. We've added another person to our panel on a permanent basis. You've seen him on the last couple of shows. Mr. Jared Walters. Jared, how are you this evening?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back again.
Oh, this is an awesome kind of thing. Now, above Jared, you see Reverend Pat Beers. Pat, say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And down underneath myself is Heather Lynn. How are you doing, Heather?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Now, I'm looking at that, but in reality on your screen, Heather's in the upper left, Jared is right underneath her, and the upper right is Pat Beers, and I'm down in the bottom right-hand corner. I was looking at a different screen over here. I'm going, wait a minute, this doesn't match up. And at any rate, this evening, we were talking more as a group, and we decided this evening that we wanted to bring up a topic and discussion about spirit guides. Not only kind of what they are, but who they are. Do we trust them? How might we be able to better listen to them? What is it that they actually do in our life? These are the kinds of questions that a lot of people, and I believe that all of us have found this seem to be true. A lot of us have run into people going, what are spirit guides? How do I get in touch with them? How are they going to do anything? So as we go along, for the people that are in the chat group here on Facebook Live, if you have questions pertaining to the show, please feel free, type it in, and we'll try to get to them as we go along. And then, hopefully, if the people that are listening to this later on the podcast broadcast, feel free to drop us a line here on Facebook, and we'll try to get to your questions as well. Hey, Jared, I'm going to start with you this evening. What do you consider spirit guides?
Well, I consider spirit guides to be nothing more than teachers, our coaches throughout life, personal trainers, if you will. They're actually spirits that once lived a human life that, went through their life and learned lessons that they can in turn help us learn lessons and help us through difficult times in our life as we grow and experience life in general.
I would very much agree with that. Now, here's the fun one, Pat.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you have been around, since you've been around in this longer than we have, how do you view spirit guides?
Just like Jared said, I've always felt that they have been people who lived before. They can be relatives that are deceased that we may never even have known or heard of, because oftentimes a great-grandfather or a great-grandmother comes through. I always feel like they're evolving on the other side. They may choose or choose not to come back again. And most of us, for some crazy reasons, decide we'll come back one more time. They may have been someone we knew on the other side who chose not reincarnate this particular time. And they're there to help us and to guide us in some way.
Now, Heather, even though you have been under the weather since your return from Hawaii, because you have such a different, or again, a unique kind of look on things, how do you view spirit guides and what they are?
I mean, very similarly to what Jared and Pat just said. They really are, what did you say? It really tickled me. Jared said,
Personal trainers?
yes, personal trainers. I was like, oh, I'm going to steal that one. That's perfect. They really are like our personal trainers. And we can go to them for advice. We can receive answers for them. They protect us. They guide us. They can be. I have animal spirit guides, and I have, like you were saying, ancestors, natives of the land from, that kind of came to me, and yeah, it's all super exciting.
I took a look just to get a little bit of a brief understanding from different aspects, different cultures of spirit guides. And it just as all of us here are looking at this, we are all saying very much the same thing across the board, not only from our different viewpoints of how we work as metaphysical people, but across different age groups as well. And we're all seeing much the same thing, that these are the spiritual beings that are here to help and to help guide us. Now, there was a couple of things that did catch my attention, and it made me think we need to make sure that we differentiate between guardian angels. Those are something extremely different. Our spirit guides, which typically, if I'm not mistaken, are around us our entire life. It doesn't mean they're here every day, but they're around us our entire life. And then guiding spirits that pop in and out dependent upon situations.
Okay.
Just like if your spirit guide is with you from birth and they're with you your whole life, so they know who you are, what's going on. Every now and again, you might have a guiding spirit that pops in, ancestor, someone that is deceased that you know, trying to get a very specific message across to you. Now, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to let you three decide, what is the best way to, and from your own point of view, what is the best way to learn about your spirit guide?
Ask them. That's the best way I learn about them. I mean, they're always there if you're tuned in to the little intuitive nudges, and you can listen that way. But when I want to know, like, what their name is, or, sometimes there's been several times that I've been aware of where I get a new guide. Yeah. And it's time, and I feel that transformation, that transition, and then I meditate and somebody new has stepped in. And so I'm like, okay, what's your name? Who are you? So I just like to meditate and really, I have like a special, place that I go in meditation that I have created that I go to specifically to talk to my guides and learn more about them. So yeah, just ask them.
Pat, I'm going to jump to you. Does that ring a bell with kind of how things happen in your life?
I would say yes. And then I'm not very good at meditating sometimes. I can't stop thinking about things. So I'll say, I need you to come to me in dream time. I want to make sure they're of the light and of the highest and best of the light. And I will ask them to come to me in dream time. Can we have a one-on-one conversation? And they will come to me in dream time, and I will actually have a visitation with them. That means I'm interacting with them. If it's a dream, I'm watching them interact with other people. But when they come directly to me, we're interacting together. We're talking. I often ask for more clarification. I have an idea, but I want to know more. I want to go deeper into this. I want to know exactly what they're trying to tell me that I may not be seeing.
Jared, does that ring pretty much true for you as well through dreams and meditation?
Absolutely. There's a variety of different ways you can connect with them, and these ladies hit on so many good ways, but the best way is through meditation. And the easiest way to access meditations is just go on YouTube, search how to connect with your spirit guide. You'll get lots of different meditations that'll help guide you into going through a process of identifying who your spirit guides are, what they look like, what their names are. And I mean, the sky's the limit. You can really do a lot with that. And like Heather was saying too, you might get several different guides that just pop in that are new to you. So you can just access that at any time through meditation if you want to talk to them further or identify them more. But there's other ways too. You can, through automatic writing, you can get messages from your spirit guides. You can use pendulum work. You can verbally channel them if you're gifted like that or can develop that. But there's lots of ways. Going to a reader, speaking to a spiritual guide that is a reader that can speak to them directly and give you messages that way. But basically, your unseen support team is always there, and you can just access them, just like Heather said, by asking them, or like Pat said, through the dream state.
And that's the important part too, because I'm right there with you, saying it is a how to that some people may or may not always fall in conjunction with each other. From our chat room, Elizabeth Burrows has asked a question: how do you know that you have spirit guides, and how do you find them? I'll start with you, Jared, and then we'll switch over here to the others.
Everybody has a spirit guide. You have this idea of this unseen support team, this spiritual this team that wants to help you, and you have to ask them and call on them to bring them in. But definitely, like I said, through meditation is the best way to kind of get in there and kind of identify them and see who they are. And if you have trouble with meditation, it's like you're not going to go out and win the Boston Marathon this evening, but if you work at it, and the more you work at it and develop it, the stronger and better it'll become, and you can really tap into that. But if you're having trouble going to someone like you, Michael, or Pat, or Heather for a reading, someone that can connect with the spirit guides and give them messages that way. Sometimes I think one of the first readings I had, a reader identified to me what my spirit guide's name was, and he's kind of one of those ones that's with me all the time. So there's a lot of different ways you can really connect with them, but everybody has spirit guides that are with them.
Pat, would you address that as well, if you would, when people are asking how might they find their guides?
Well, I send my guides before me every day to remove all discordance from my path, and I'll say to them, have you noticed your intuition is a little more activated? Do you find your gut feelings? Is there something, like I always go down Main Street to go home, and tonight they're telling me, no, I got to go down Broadway. Is that happening to you? And that's often a spirit guide saying, you need to make a little adjustment here. I find that they help me to make adjustments. I guess that's not the easiest way to address it. They take me out of my norm sometimes because I'm not seeing something that I need to see, and they're going to try to guide me so that I notice whatever this is.
Heather, when you first found that you had spirit guides, how did you begin to connect with them?
I begun through automatic writing and through meditation. Was the easiest ways for me, I found, to connect and to really get answers. The first spirit guide that I was aware of was my aunt, who had passed away a couple years prior. And after I had initially connected with her, I started writing, and I could tell that it was her because of the way that it would come through. I'd read it and I'd be like, that's not how I would say that. That's how she would say that. So, yeah, that was the easiest way for me to connect. And I would like to say that really, and I think Pat hit the nail on the head. Did I say that right? Because, Creator gave us free will. So you have to ask them. They're always here. They're always protecting you along your life, throughout your life, on your spiritual path. They're not gonna just like all of a sudden open the gates and let everything through. They're kind of there to say, okay, what are they ready for now? What are they ready for now? But you really have to ask them for help because you have free will and they're more than willing to help. But again, just like Pat said, she asks every day, just putting that intent behind it, and then you get those little intuitive nudges, just like Pat said, I have to go this way home? Okay, that happens to me all the time. Like, I was going to go that way. Okay, we're going this way. Never know where you'll end up.
Jared, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
You and Heather brought up the very same subject. You talk about automatic writing, Now, for people that aren't aware, automatic writing is when you sit down with a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and you just start letting your hand write, literally. Okay, it's not you trying to focus on anything in particular. It's not you trying to go and spot the cat went sideways. It is allowing your body to use a function that is common to your body. You know, it's spirit coming through. But here's my question. For people that may not know, how do you differentiate between your spirit guide and possibly something that you don't want?
Good question. One of the ways that I identify that is just by their spiritual frequency, and that can be somewhat difficult for just your basic layperson that is just starting out in this and developing and starting to learn. But for me, it's all about it's a vibration. If they're of a higher vibration, you'll just naturally feel that, versus if there's something that's a lower vibration. That can be, like I said, difficult to discern, but usually listen clearly to what they're saying to you. And usually it'll be something that's kind of negative in essence. If it's something that's a lower vibration, they may bring things through you to you that you don't necessarily want to know, or things that don't necessarily help you for your highest and best good. So you just want to definitely pay attention to those markers and things that they're giving you. But remember that your spirit guides are going to give you inspirational things. They're going to be like your mother in essence, where she's in your ear telling you, this is what you should do. This is better for you. This is what I suggest, in a positive way, not a negative way that's going to do any harm to you.
Pat?
Yes, sir.
When you have turned around, and we have all been to a point where we have experienced a negative presence being around, whether it was when we're reading, when Pat has been doing seances, when we are in some place that is typically not our home, to help people understand. And Jared's absolutely right in a lot of things that he's saying. How would someone, from your experience and wisdom, how would someone go about possibly setting up boundaries, guidelines? How would they, I don't want to say protect themselves, but how would they filter or begin to filter before they started the process of automatic writing?
I always say the Lord's Prayer no matter what I'm doing. And I do the unity prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. There's this feeling. I did automatic writing for years, but for me, it would never break. It was just a continual sentence, and then I have to go back and read it when I came out of meditation. I put the lines in to break my words up. There's just a feeling. Even though you don't know what you're doing, you'll still know this doesn't feel right. This doesn't fit. There's something about this that's just not, when you meet someone and you get that little thing that says, arm's length is good. I don't need you in my personal space. It's the same kind of thing.
Right.
And I didn't always recognize it. And for me, my writing, one of them was very much backhanded. Like they were a left-handed writer, they often write backhanded, where the words slant backward. Some would doodle flowers before I started. Some would do the circles like we used to do when we were learning to write. Each one had its own kind of a signature, I guess you would call it. And when the energy would change, it would just be, there would be a pause, and then I would start a new paragraph, or a couple sentences, a couple lines down. It's just and honest to goodness, you will recognize it. I don't, but you will. There's just something in you that's going to trigger that this is either okay or no, I would choose to talk to someone else. Please move over and allow someone else to come through.
Surprisingly, when I was first getting started into all this, I went to a reader, and the reader said, let me see who I can figure out who your spirit guide is. And I'm going to close my eyes here a minute and see if I can tune into them, excuse me. And while she was doing that, I was doing the same thing. And I'm hearing Damon. And she says, your spirit guide's name is Demonte. So it didn't take me until much later to actually really tune into him to see what he looked like and how he presented himself, because from time to time he could change depending on the situation. Um, he would appear sometimes a little bit different to me. So um, I connect and I just know that he's there. So I will focus my intent on him. But I don't really do a lot of guided meditations where I go to access that. I just know that they're there. So for me, it's not as important that I see them, or I just know that they're there and they're wanting to help me. So I really don't get too deep into trying to focus on to connect with them in that sort of way, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Pat, when all of this started and began with you, and you were finally in your mind's eye able to see, what did they present themselves as to you?
I have one gentleman who's Indian, and he's only about 4 foot tall. And when he would come to talk to me, it was like it was important to him that he show me who he was, so I knew who I was communicating with. And the others, sometimes I'll hear a name. Most times for me, it's a feeling. I associate certain feelings with certain guides.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are a little sterner than others. For me, anyway. It's like you're not listening, or they'll just keep throwing the same things that will make me think about them, so I can identify.
It does. And it's ironic because mine, from a very early age, the very first time that I ever saw literal, in my mind's eye, was I was in my grandmother's upstairs in the attic, sleeping, because that's where we were at. She had a larger house. We were all the way up in the attic. And I had rolled over, and right in the middle of the wall, and it's this right in between dreaming and waking, here's this window all of a sudden that goes up, and this guy's head comes through. And it reminded me, ironically, kind of like that calm feeling, like Mr. Rogers. And here he is. And who are you? He goes, I'm Michael. I said, well, that's ironic. That's my name. He goes, yeah, I know. And we had this discussion. And he said, okay, I'll be back later on. And he closes the window and the whole thing disappears. And that's when I really started to wake up and wonder if what I saw was real or not. But as the years went by, and I've talked with Pat about this before, to me, I call them the guys. There's a group of 5. Michael is kind of like the mouthpiece, but there's 4 other gentlemen that when I get into heavy discussions, or if I'm really getting off the beaten path, or I'm not understanding and it's going to turn into an argumentation, he's sitting in the middle and there's 2 on either side of him, and we all have a knockdown, drag-out discussion about things until I understand what they're trying to tell me. And sometimes literally it gives me a headache because I'm not paying attention, or I'm just not getting it. Some days I'm just too dense to get it, too obtuse. I'm not seeing the bigger picture. And that's something that I want to talk about when we come back from our break, because it is the one thing that has been mentioned is getting your attention. And they will, beyond a shadow of a doubt, get our attention when we are off track, when we are not doing things correctly, when we are having just any kind of an issue. I think we would all agree. Pat, would you say they get your attention in a particular way?
Oh, definitely.
Heather?
It's like I've let you play. I've let you go your way. Now, come back to where you belong.
Mm-hmm. Heather, did they grab your particular attention in a particular way?
Oh gosh, in many ways. But yes, they, and sometimes I'll be like, all right, I know you're going to need to slap me real hard in the face with this one, guys. When I know, like you're saying, I'm just having a dense moment or a dense day. Like, okay, guys, I know you're trying to get me, give it to me one more time, a little better.
Jared, I have an ironic feeling that they have a very particular way to get your attention. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. It's like throwing a brick at the back of my head sometimes. Hey, I'm here. Wake up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's the one thing. We all have had these experiences from the time that we've either been awakened or since we've been very young. And again, this goes right back into the question of the chat room, is they're there all the time. We have spirit guides. It's just a matter then of beginning to pay attention. And Kimberly Carr here in our chat said something similar. Had that happen when she was waking up and it was kind of fuzzy. I had a lady standing next to my bed and she kept repeating, "My name is Lizzie," still not sure why or what she wanted. And I would tell you, Kimberly, if you get the chance, stop, and when you are falling asleep, at some point when you're calm, and I mean after you've had a decent day, not after you've had the stereotypical day from hell, but when you've had a decent day and you're ready for bed, before you start to fall asleep, think about that person, their appearance, and that name, and ask them what they wanted. They'll either come back to you in that half-waking dream state in your dream, or when you first begin to wake up again, and they'll actually answer you. Would everybody say that this is true? When you ask a question of your spirit guide, you will always get an answer. Would everybody agree?
Not always the one you want. But yes, they'll always give you an answer.
That's what I was going to say. It might not be the one you want or expect. A lot of times it's better than what you expect, I found.
You'll notice, Pat, I said you will always get an answer. Yeah, I used to think the same thing. Well, I'm going to ask a nice question. I'm going to get a nice answer. Boy, was I wrong.
Can I add, people sometimes, that's how they start to become awake, is because they're aware of this thing, this little voice in their head or whatever that's taught, and they don't know what it is. And that's sometimes how they're coming awake, is they're beginning to recognize things.
Mm-hmm. All right, when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about why spirit guides are in our life and how we can interface with them better, work with them a little bit better, and we'll get into a few other topics just right along with that. But in the meantime, we're going to stop for our sponsor break and a short interlude, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Divine Awakening's New Age Emporium and Healing Arts Shop. It's the largest locally owned and operated metaphysical retailer in the Sandusky, Ohio Tri-County area. Serving the Firelands region since April of 2014, they're pleased to offer a space that is welcoming, relaxing, and open to everyone. In the Emporium, you will find a variety of unique gifts, special events and services, as well as classes and workshops to soothe your mind, body, and spirit. If you're in the Sandusky, Ohio area, look for Divine Awakenings at 1006 Tiffin Avenue, Sandusky, Ohio. Their phone number is 419-502-9137, and you can find them on Facebook at /Divine Awakenings LLC. Coming back from our break, we always manage to chat when we're offline or during our break. A couple of different things have come up in our chatting, and I'm going to start with Jared because he brought up something that is extremely interesting and something I don't know if any of the rest of us had really thought about just yet. Jared, go right ahead.
All right. I wanted to talk quickly about a concept that's known as inner band guides and outer band guides. Now, our inner band guides are those spirit guides that accompany us into this lifetime and they remain with us throughout our entire lifetime and are closest to us on a day-to-day basis. Some believe that that can be anywhere from 1 to 8 spirit guides throughout our lifetime. Majority of time, it resonates about a 5, but it can fluctuate. And then there's this concept of outer band guides, basically that come and go. They're pretty transient. They're like I said earlier, personal trainers, mentors. They're specialist guides that present only in certain times in our lives for specific endeavors. For instance, if you want to take up a task of playing the piano, you might get a guide that pops in that is an expertise on how to play the piano. And some people just take off and are like, they've done this before. It may be something to playing a sport, or for instance, if you get in a tragic car accident, you've always seen those instances or heard of those instances where somebody steps in and helps take care of somebody, and the next thing you know, they're gone. It's like they're there for that specific moment in time to help you through that tragedy or some event that you're going on throughout your life. But that can fluctuate, so you can get those all the time. But we basically maintain an inner band of guides that are with us on a day-to-day basis that stay with us throughout our lifetime.
And that's what I wanted. And when you brought that up, it kind of goes with the theme that I had titled the show earlier in the week was spirit guides and guiding spirits, and that sums up the difference in between the two types really, really well. Now, Pat, you had brought up something about actually listening to your guides.
It's been a number of times. As most of you know, I'm a retired realtor broker, 28 years. And, well, first of all, it's about the driving. Like I said, I would always come home Main Street, and tonight they want me to go Broadway or High Street. And I would find out later that there was either an accident or an incident going on that by listening to them, I avoided that, or I would have been smack dab in the middle. And then when you were talking about the inner and outer bands, I was thinking also about the times that it's something different that we're going through. And I will ask for someone who has knowledge specifically with this, and I will get help because my normal guides are not giving me anything that I feel is exactly what I need. So I'll say, okay, guys, is there anyone else that can help me to pinpoint, to hone in, to see what I really need to see so I can do what I need to do here? And it's often when dealing with clients that I usually automatically just get information. I mean, it just rolls. And then every once in a while you get that one person that this is not enough. I need a little more here. And so I will ask for someone to please, who's been through the situation or can help me with this, to come.
And I find that, I don't know if I want to say that it happens like that all the time for all of us. Sometimes we're not even aware of what we need at a particular time, and we find different spirits kind of bouncing into our life, like Jared had said, for specific reasons. And I wonder, at points in time, did our spirit guide go and grab somebody else and say, hey, I got this really thick-skulled Irish kid over here. Can you come help me for a minute? Because they have a very specific way of teaching or doing something, so that I could learn or adjust. Heather, have you ever found that to be true, to where you are accustomed to working with a particular guide and all of a sudden another one pops in and kind of takes over,
Yeah. When I was a couple years ago in a very life-changing place and essentially starting my life over again, I had this guide that came in very quickly and was with me and just was very monumental in my growth during that time. And I hit this point, and I had just let go of so much stuff, and I went to this meditation drum circle, and this beautiful like butterfly fairy woman came to me, and she just flies in and she's just all happy, and it was almost like a feeling like I had graduated. I don't know if that makes sense, but I had like leveled up or something. She was like, okay, and she was like, just had that sense of that she was proud of me, and like, okay, here I am for the next steps of this journey. You know what I mean? And now here I am, and I haven't seen her in a while. If I needed her, would she come back? Probably. But at different times in my life, or like I have my spirit animal is the elephant. Um, my whole life, just, the elephant. And then a few weeks ago, before I went on my trip, I meditated for my spirit guide, or for my spirit animal. And my elephant was off in the back of the scene, and this beautiful little ladybug flew right onto my shoulder and told me her name, and we had like it was a very profound experience. Uh, but she's with me now I was asking for help. I was like, okay, I know everything is aligned. What is this? And she was, the ladybug represents a wish come true. And literally the next day I had a huge wish that came true. So she's just, they come in when we need them.
All right.
And when we ask.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it's true. We do have to ask in order to be able to receive. The spirit guides are not just going to butt into your life. Periodically they will, but they're not going to try to railroad you in a particular fashion because you have free choice, free will, your own destiny. That's more of the guardian angel role. When you're doing something massively wrong, they'll step in and smack you upside the head. To me, spirit guides are more there. They are helpful. They're kind of like the ever present librarian. To be able to talk to be able to converse with, to be able to gain knowledge from. Every now and again, the librarian will go, "Hey, shh,
Yeah.
don't do that." But the librarian's not going to come around and smack you with the book.
Yeah.
The angel will.
Yes, they will.
Now, Jared, when we're talking about why, what are some of the things that spirit guides are here for in our life?
Basically anything and everything and anything at the same time. I think it's kind of important to remember that they don't interfere or try to alter or restrict our free will like you were talking about, Michael. And they're not going to spiritually ding you if you don't listen to their advice that you're giving them. Sometimes, they realize that we need to make mistakes in order to gain the valuable lessons to learn from and to grow from, because they're ultimately there to help us and are concerned with our spiritual growth, to, heighten ourselves and our awareness, if you will. So they're there to help you with anything and everything at the same time. And they've lived this human life. They've mastered these concepts. They've transcended, they've moved on, and they're just here to give us those nudges and help us along the way when we run into difficulties and hardships. Because that's the majority of the time that we actually call on them. Oh God, I can't take this. I need help. And we call on them to help us through things, whether it's a loss of a loved one in a grieving process. They can be there to help and console. The sky's the limit with these guys. They're just like your parents, spiritual parents, if you will, give you advice. It might not always be like what Pat said, you want what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear, and you can take it or leave it because you have that free will.
Free will is a wonderful thing, and at the same time, it's what gets us all in trouble. And most often people will find that we get into trouble when we don't pay attention. Pat, when you have been doing any kind of seance work, have you ever been able to perceive by your own true eyeballs, have you ever been able to perceive other people's spirit guides, like they're standing behind them or very close to them during a seance?
Yes. And it was so funny because when our Theosophical Society was very active, we did a seance, and one of our gentlemen was Native American, and we could all hear the drum, the gentleman walking around beating the drum. I saw him first. I didn't say anything except to say that there was someone here. And pretty soon his wife spoke up and said, "For goodness sakes, George, he's standing right behind you," and he blah, 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 blah. And everybody had seen him shortly after I did because George was not paying attention. So it's like, okay, if I let them all see me, maybe he'll get the hint. And it kind of freaked him out because he had seen him, but he was trying to ignore him. And it was very important that he see this gentleman because he had been a great, great, great grandfather and had been a shaman. And George had the abilities, but he was so afraid of what he saw and what he heard, he wouldn't go there. And this gentleman was trying to come to tell him, this is your blood. This is your heartbeat. This is your calling. Please stop ignoring it. And from that night on, I understand that he did then start to
Hmm.
hear the drum.
Beautiful.
And he just thought it was in his head. Now his wife's mega into this, and he's like, okay, I'll go along if you insist. Plus, he knew me, and he thought he was going to come make fun, but it turned out that he was the one who got. Yeah, and that's happened just a few times that I often see them before the person to see them or for other people in the room to see them. I think is fascinating because it just gives it that stamp of validity that, hey, she's not just talking here. This is truly happening.
I've run into that a couple different times where you can't at first associate what you're hearing, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and you're like, oh. And it's like, wait a minute. Now, Heather, when you have hit that oh moment, when you're talking with somebody, because you're realizing that, let's say that I'm the person that's talking with you. You're peopling for the day, okay? And I'm there, and I'm like dense to the max, and I'm not listening, I'm not open, I'm not paying attention, and you keep getting this an understanding. You need to say something, and you find that it's not your circle of spirit guide, if you will. That oh moment goes, oh, wait a minute, that's his guide. Oh, how do you break the ice with that particular person to get them to hear that snippet of a piece of information?
It just depends on what type of environment I'm in. I've only had it a couple of times, like at work, where I've been like, like I really just gotta say this, and I usually am like, okay, I usually am pretty upfront, and I people decently well, and so it's the couple times it's happened at work, which is not typically an environment that I do this kind. It's just a different, what do you say, environment. So I kind of different hats, I guess you say. But yeah, when spirit wants to get the message across, they're going to get it across, and they know that you're open. So I usually am just upfront about it and be like, this is going to sound really weird. And I just say it. Now, Pat has some really creative ways because she's said, sometimes every now and then, we're not the Long Island mediums or anything, but you're in a public space or something, or you just like, you get the urge to do something really super goofy or like say something really loud that you know what I mean? You have to let it out. You just gotta let it out. So yeah, Pat said she's I remember stories about you talking about people that you just like tell the story to them, and she's like, oh, I thought I knew you, or something, comes up with some creative ways to tell people. But I'm like, this is gonna sound really strange, but I have to tell you this, and I just get it out of the way, and then I just wait for their look, and usually they don't look as shocked or as scared as I would think they are, and I think that it's probably because this guide has been like knocking on that door for a while, and so they already kind of intuitively knew, but they just needed one more in your face validation of what they were hearing or seeing or sensing.
Michael, could you explain Heather's peopling for people who don't know?
I'm Heather worked with people very, very well, and she has a job that interfaces with a wide array of people. And when we first started, I said, "So, what did you do today?" "Well, I peopled a lot," and I'm like, um, "Okay, what do you mean?" She goes, and then she told us, that she interacted with, but she called it peopling, and I was just like, "Okay." It was an interesting kind of thing at the time, but it struck my funny bone. So Heather peoples a lot.
Yes, that is in my job description. I people for a living. There might be some car selling also, but it's mostly just peopling.
Jared, you have a very unique viewpoint of the public because you run and own Divine Awakenings LLC in Sandusky, but also because you are a shaman and a metaphysical reader and many other things attached with that. But you have had to see people come into the store and meander around and then all of a sudden find something. Would you equate that to their spirit guide going, "No, not there, let's go over here. No, not there, come on, keep going"?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of times they come into the store, they're like, I don't know what I'm here for, but I know I'm here for something, and I just haven't found it yet. I know it's here though, but I'll find it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
What would be one of the, I don't want to say strange, because what we do all the time would strike people as strange. Um, what would be one of the most memorable of that has happened?
Good question. Well, one that was kind of significant that I can think of off the top of my head here is I was speaking about this past weekend, but 9 times out of 10, our top sellers are tumbled stones and incense, hands down. And one time, a lady was looking through the stones and she brought it up to purchase this, and she showed me something very unique. It had the name somehow through the inclusions, it said KIM, and she said, "That's my name. I have to get this stone. It's for me." So that was a significant time, and it was really clear. It looked like KIM right on this carnelian tumbled stone, just random, and she found it, and it spoke to her. So she's like, "You know what? I can't deny this. This is going home with me." So
See, and I know Pat has been in your store in Midnight Moon, no matter where she goes, constantly picking up little odd things here or there, sometimes larger things. But I find it funny because, Pat, when you do that, it's always with a purpose because you don't know who that is supposed to go to, but you end up giving that to the people, correct? And I mean, a various groups of people. If you might pick something up from a psychic fair somewhere, and it winds up going to somebody in one of your circles. What makes you do that?
I don't know. I was at a fair in Seville, and we only did one fair at this shop, and the lady had it was like river stones, like Jared has in the shop,
Hmm.
but they had carved it to look like a Native American female, and then they had a little turquoise on it and some different things, and I didn't want it. It was not my style. I like bling. This was rather soft looking, and it was different stones around the necklace and everything. I think I paid $30 for it, which was kind of like, are you out of your mind? But I bought it and I started wearing it because I needed to wear it for some reason. And I went to our grandmother's gathering, netoflight.org, about the indigenous grandmothers. And one of my friends came up to me and said, "Oh, that's beautiful. I never noticed that before." And she said, "Boy, I would really like to have something like that." I gave it to her. Now, that was on a Friday afternoon. She wore it Saturday. By Saturday evening, she had given it to another gal. And by the time we left there Sunday afternoon, 5 people had worn that necklace, and it went home to California. Now, there
Wow.
was something about that necklace that we each needed to wear it for whatever amount of time and impart our energy on it. and they would just fall, and it was like they were mesmerized by this, and it was a river stone, she said, that she had just added a few touches to bring out the natural things that were in it.
Wow. Jared, I'm going to pop a question over here to you. Gentleman in the chat room by the name of Joe Wall. And I'm going to ask you this simply because it's more from a guy's perspective than it is from a lady's perspective. He asked who his spirit guide is, and I don't want to try to answer that, but how would he particular best find a way to find out the name of his spirit guide?
Use your intuitive senses. That's what I can recommend. Like you said, spirit guides can be both male and female. They can be ascended masters. It can be just about anything. So the best thing that I can suggest is definitely meditate on it and ask. You can even ask aloud and say, make your presence known to me. Can you please give me your name? And listen for it. The first name that comes into resonance is more than likely the name of your spirit guide. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that sometimes these are spiritually evolved beings. And if you're an ascended master, sometimes you might not identify with the name because they can be foreign to you. They can be ancient. They can be modern. So you might not even be able to recognize the name, but maybe it's an acronym. Like, for instance, when we talked about Max the Crystal Skull, Max is just an acronym for his name that we wouldn't be able to identify. So just listen to it. And if it comes through, and if it's something as simple as Sam, well, hello, Sam. That's what he wants to be called because his name might be Sacagawea. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Something you might not identify with, but, you can shorten that name. And like Demonte, I'm not so certain that Demonte isn't more complicated than what it is, but that's what resonates with me. And that's what is simplest for me to remember. So definitely meditate on it.
Perfect. Thank you. Because I wanted to make sure that he got a reply to his question. And it is, to me, and I would say it, I don't know if this is true for the rest of you, but when we talk about spirit guides in general, it almost always turns down to be more of a personal connection between you and the guide. If somebody randomly handed you $1 million, it's a wonderful thing to have. It can do fantastic things in your life, but you don't have the appreciation as if you actually wrote a book and sold $1 million worth of book. Your feeling for that amount of currency becomes much different. And the same thing with spirit guides. You work with them, you build a rapport with them, and finding out their name is part of that. Would you guys agree?
Yes, very much.
Because I would very much say, yet again, all of us have hit a point where somebody during a reading will ask, what's my spirit guide's name? Mm-hmm. 99 times out of 100, I will not answer that because, A, it's not really my place to answer it. These are people that are coming in randomly in and out of my life. Now, if it were my family, I might sit down and work with them and help them discuss and find, but again, it's building a rapport between your guide and yourself. So it's important, to build that. Just as Jared and everybody had said earlier, this is an intuitive muscle. The more that you use it, the stronger it becomes. The stronger it becomes, the more capable you become, the more you can do. So if somebody were to hand you your diploma while you were in 2nd grade, it would mean absolutely nothing to you. However, when you graduated and somebody hands you your diploma, it means a lot.
Can I add something, Michael? Oh,
sure.
Sorry. Sometimes they will literally spell their name for me, and it's something that makes no sense to me. I can't pronounce it. I can't. And they'll go, oh, okay, because it resonates with the person we're talking to. Sorry, Heather.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying anything.
Trust is a good word to remember. Trust what you receive.
Yeah.
Trust is that biggest thing, I believe, and it made me stop and think. You can have massive theological backgrounds, differences of. You can have no theological background. You can be an atheist. You can be Wiccan. you're still going to have a spirit guide. And you're right, that trust factor has to be built. Otherwise, they're going to say, turn left, and you're going to say, screw you, I'm turning right. And you're going to wind up in a massive pileup or something, like Pat had said. So it's got to be a trust factor.
Mm-hmm. You're just not going to hear, I told you so.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're not judgmental. You chose to do that. This is what happened. It's a result.
And that's true. Very, very true. Well, wrapping up this evening, Heather, I'm going to start with you. What would, in short peopling sentences, what would you want people to know about spirit guides this evening?
Just that it's already been touched on by all of us that everybody has them. And really, I like how Pat is very intentional about it, and I do the same thing in my own way. I wake up in the morning and I say my affirmations, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to keep the path clear. We're going to stay open to receiving, keep me, in the receptive mode, and connected. Just put that intention out there, and you will absolutely start to notice little nudges, just like Pat was saying, turn left instead of turn right. When you just get that feeling, it is literally a feeling. And I know people feel it in different places of their body, but in your gut or all the little tinglies on your arm, however you feel it, follow that guidance, and you will be so surprised at where it takes you, because you take that left instead of turning right, and then you end up at the store that you weren't going to go to, and then you meet the most amazing person that you've ever met in your life, and you have this incredible conversation, and it's just miracles happen when you listen to your spirit guides. That's my basis of it. Absolute miracles happen. So stay receptive and listen.
Awesome. Pat?
I always ask that are they of the light? Are, highest and best of the light for whatever's going on with me. And I ask them to make it clear, concise, complete. And then I'd like a little confirmation. And that usually asking them of the highest and best of the light, and the confirmation usually does it. Again, it's just one of those things you know how you just know things? Sometimes you'll understand it. You'll just know.
And that's the important part. Jared?
I just think they're completely amazing. It's just these people that you're not seeing on a day-to-day basis, but they're behind you, trying to guide you, trying to put you in that right direction, that whatever your life purpose is, and try to get you there. Again, they're very much involved, interested in your spiritual growth. Like the little things from manifesting, putting a thought into your head or putting it out to the universe, what the things you want. Don't think for a minute that they're not back there trying to scramble around to make sure that you get exactly what you want and what you need. So, all these synchronicities, and it plays into everything, our intuition. Whenever I do readings, that's the first people I call upon to, that's who I'm communicating with. Give me the information. Can you go get such and such so we can talk to that person, bring them in? And they'll communicate with your spirit guides as well. As I'm giving the reading, we'll go over there and talk to their spirit guides and tell them to tell you what I need to know, and they'll bring that information across. And one of the biggest thing is when you call them in, make sure you thank them. Make sure you thank them and show the appreciation for the wisdom and the knowledge that they've given you, because it's impactful, and that they're only there to help you. And when you're grateful, the sky's the limit. Like I said, there's just untapped potential for whatever you need or whatever you want. They're there for you.
I would agree on all of that. And being able to show gratitude is huge. I think we would all agree about that. Because if we don't show the gratitude, if we don't say, hey, thank you, we're not going to get as much help along the way. It's not that they become bored or disassociated with us. There's something that I would like to add for people. Your spirit guide and guides are there for your betterment. They are there to bring you knowledge. They are there to help share their wisdom and their information with you in order for you to grow as a person, as a spiritual being, as a theological person, okay, as an awareness. They're not necessarily going to be there if you say, hey, what's the winning lottery number? More than likely, you're going to hear nothing. So when you ask something like that and you get no response, or you get a or a snotty response, please remember that you asked a question that was not particularly there for your highest good. Winning $14 million is a wonderful thing, but you didn't grow to be able to accept all of that. You know, the only way that and I always say there is a caveat to everything. The only person that I would ever say would be someone that is truly elderly and has put their time in on earth, almost like Mother Teresa. She might get the lottery numbers because at that point she would spend the money in a very vastly different way. But the rest of us, the spirit guides, are going to go, oh, wait, I have a middle finger. Want to see it? And it's going to be like that because that's not what they're there for. They're there to help. They're there for your betterment.
Yeah, they understand it's a game of chance.
And that's something that is wholeheartedly true. They will not work in your life on chance. So they're there for purpose, not a roll of the dice. Fantastic. Well, everybody that is in the chat room, I appreciate you being there. Everybody that has been listening or will listen on the podcast, thank you so much. We appreciate all of you. All of us will be back again next week here at 8 p.m. And we're going to have something a little bit different that we're going to be speaking about here over the next couple of weeks. So you might want to check back. As always, you can check on our Facebook page. If you go to Facebook and put in /Terra Turas, you can find us there. You can also find us on your favorite podcast. If you don't have time to watch the show, you can check us out on iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, a few different ways. But you can also, two different things, you can check us out on our own webpage at www.terraturas.com. And if you want, you can even go to YouTube and check out our older shows, as well as some of the personal shows that we have. Just look for Terra Turas on YouTube. So until next week, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Bye.